Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this panel discussion, and the lovely Camille is here. Woo! And she is like the ultimate Native American tourism lady. Ask her about anything and she'll tell you. She'll tell you the best fry bread comes from the Tohono O'odham Nation, and the best chili comes from the Tohono O'odham Nation, and the best, just kidding.
Stop while you're ahead.
And I'm a big girl, and I just like all the food from everywhere. Okay, so come on up, everybody give her a big hand, and let's get this part of our program going.
Ganachchish, Anyat Kusani. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Siesta Kla Ayahat. My name is Siesta Kla in Tlingit. I'm from Sitka, Alaska, born and raised. I'm transplanted from a rainforest to a desert. I appreciate these gentlemen, the work that they do. I am the executive director for the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association that's based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have the great opportunity to be the moderator and work with these gentlemen for the next hour and a half. And I'm hoping that that you participate, because we'll be asking, and I say we, me and you, will be asking them questions about the great work that they do. We are going to give these gentlemen an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about themselves, and then we'll start asking the questions. Now, our first panelist, and I'm going to introduce them both at the same time so they can come up and represent themselves one after the other. Our first one is Joseph Jaramillo from Isleta, Pueblo, and I apologize. New Mexico, and that's where we're going to be hosting our conference, and so I'm excited to have him aboard with us. And he is the founder and owner of Native Natural. And then right behind him will be Stacey Jensen. He is the president and CEO of North Leupp Family Farms Incorporated. So with that, I would like to have Joseph please come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hirbam kima kherimbad, hawu mawami. Isleta Pueblo, greeting, welcome, and good afternoon. As mentioned, I am the owner of Native Natural. It's something that I never thought would happen, but here I am talking about it. It started in 2006. And now here we are in 2018. 12 years I've been into this, and it's amazing how kind of response I've gotten, not only in New Mexico, but throughout the country, as well as internationally. And I'm so happy to be here to share my story with you. My Native Natural is kind of happened by accident. Back in New Mexico, we're primarily a farming community, have been for centuries, but for some reason or other, in around 1950, things went dwindling. You'd see too many vacant fields turning into shrubs, forest, weeds. Looked terrible. So that gave me the incentive to do something about it, start talking to people about it, and asking why are we leaving such a beautiful thing that we've had all these centuries, years. So with that thought and some help from people that would listen, we started to get back into teaching and talking about how we can start utilizing our fields again so we can start growing our own vegetables instead of going into the Albuquerque and catering to Walmart or other food service people that we know from just records and stats that processed food is not really your best healthy food. And it took time to teach people that again, because it's too easy to go into the store, buy something, go home, put it together without realizing what you're doing to yourself. So it took a lot of time to teach, get back people to start rethinking about it. And at the same time, the big thing that really turned people around was that majority of our tribal members were beginning to deal with diabetes, like most people are, I guess, across the country. And little did they know that that might have happened because of our diets have changed. But blue corn has been part of our diet for as long as we've been there, I guess. It's been grown for some time, past years. So that's the reason why I chose blue corn as my main product that I wanted to grow and reintroduce it back into the tribe totally so that everybody could enjoy it. So with that is how I was able to get back and start working this, and with the help of USDA and a local representative, they came in and helped get a process or a program started to where we could start showing people, showing tribal members, showing kids how to get a farm or a garden started. So with that, we called the project Isleta AgriVision. And that was in 1998. And with that starting, it allowed us to get people to understand what we were trying to do. And it picked up. It took a while, it didn't happen overnight. It took about 5 years before people started realizing that, hey, this is something that is worth pursuing, worth working for, and so forth. So when we had enough momentum going, that's when I started packaging these items so we could bring in extra funds to help with the effort. And that's where the name Native Natural comes from. I researched it out, and I found out that nobody was using the name Native Natural, so I was able to grab it and trademark it for my purpose. So that's how Native Natural was born, and today it's doing very well. I'm still promoting the blue corn and a few other added value-added type foods as a result of using the blue corn meal. And the added value, two items I have at the table are the pancake mix and cornbread muffin mix. It's already pre-mixed. All you have to do is add a couple or 3 items and get a batter going, and you've got ready to put it in the oven. And also I've got for those that want to make a full meal out of the cornmeal, blue corn meal, I have the raw material and also the chili powder, which comes from New Mexico, plus Anasazi beans that complement any type of dish that you might want to prepare using cornmeal. So those are in quick introduction. That's what I have. So with that, I'll go ahead and sit down and talk. When I get back up here again, I'll give you more detailed information about each item. Thank you.
Yat she tadaja ni chete out this thing. Don egi tadish gizni shlon todich ini bashichin ado tlizlane edashche ashihin edashanala. And that's, how we identify ourselves in Diné, because you never know who might be on the audience. For all you Navajos. So I am a member of the Navajo Nation, and we have a program, and it's North Leupp Family Farms. We're a nonprofit organization, and so a lot of our activities is geared towards the community. And what we try to do is reintroduce the old ways of growing food, the old ways of how we used to prepare our food, and then try to reconnect that with the youth. I always say our grandmas, they know a lot. So they're our children. So if you can re-engage those two generations, you've come a long way. And currently, we're located, I guess we've always been around. The farm itself has been around. It has a history. But for North Leupp Farms, I've been there for 13 years. I came in on a summer internship. I did my studies at Northern Arizona University in a indigenous applied program. So that brought me back out to the community and tried to, go out and make a difference. I guess I should just sort of tell you my background in farming. I grew up in a farming family, a traditional farming family. I remember when I was, just a little kid, and I would look up and, oh my goodness, these corns are really tall, and I would get lost in corn. And it was such a beautiful feeling, and that always stayed with me as I was growing up. I did my schooling, I did my work, but I came back to the reservation. And what really motivated me to do this, through the internship, it was through a health science program at NAU. And I was really interested in, some of the high rates of diabetes, hypertension, stroke, cancer, among our people. A lot of our older people were dying off. And so every week there was always somebody in the community that had passed on. So that's what really motivated me, I believe, to come back and try to make a difference with North Leupp Family Farms. And so some of our goals and some of our values with the farm is tradition, of course, and as well as food. We want to try to reintroduce a lot of the old foods, and as well as health. Health is one of the important things that we, especially with what what motivated me to come back. And lastly is conservation efforts. And if you can take those 4 factors, and you'll realize they're all interrelated. You can't really have conservation without having, some of the other factors like health, food. And so that has always been our guiding principle here at the farm. We're a 100-acre farm, though we don't, utilize all of it. We don't cultivate the whole 100 acres. We do cultivate about 33 acres. And we have roughly 33 members per year that come out. We invite them out, and they do their own work. They plant their seeds, they water the crops, they harvest the crops. And whatever crops they get, they take it out to the market. Mainly it's the sustenance farming, but when they have extra crops, they'll either sell it to me or they'll take it out to the roadside. I just recently started a farmer's market and produce, and so that allows me to bring in food. It's not so much of growing our own food, but having accessibility to food, for our communities. I remember when I was growing up, and I really didn't get introduced to milk or processed foods until I got to boarding school, which must have been about 8 years old. And before then, all we relied on was our livestock. We always had a sheep corral and our cornfields. And then we used to forage a lot too and hunt. And that's how, I remember growing up. But once I got to a boarding school, things changed, the diets changed. And I think that's what really, is a culture shock when it comes to nutrition. And with that, I remember growing up, and I was, when you're farming, it stays with you for the rest of your life, and that's one of the things that we do with the children. We get them while they're really young, while they're still preschoolers, kinders, and then some of them are coming back, while they're finishing college, they'll come back and want to help out at the farm. So it's a really, really good feeling. And I've been with the farm for 13 years. I came in, and one of our founders, Justin Willie, he was one of the main drive, and he convinced me to come on board. And since then, I've been with the farm. I'm a machine operator by trade, so that allows me to work on a lot of the equipments at the farm. I fix just about anything. As well as I used to do a lot of landscaping, both residential and professional landscaping. And one time we were sitting around, Justin and I was like bragging. I just got off work and said, "Oh yeah, we did this, $1 million home. We redid the landscaping on it, and I'm naming off all these landscaping plants." And then my bro looks at me. He goes, "Well, now, can you eat that?" And that's what really got me was, "Oh, you're right. Maybe if I boiled the leaves off the rose tree, I probably could drink that." And so he introduced me to plant foods. And in Navajo, that's really sacred. H-E-on, they call it. It's food, and it's a plant. Okay, so you gotta hold that. You gotta hold that in reverence, and that's what's been keeping me going. And each year it's different, and we try to improve on last year. Last year we had an invasion with the little cockroaches or little squash bugs, and this year I haven't seen one yet. So we're having a good harvest, a good yield with our squash, and I am grateful for that. And that's just a little bit about my history. Like I've been around our people for a long time. Our community is somewhat close knit, and we all know each other's through clan or through living next to each other's. So it's a community affair, and farming has always been in Diné a community effort, a collaborative effort. We would go around, families would help each other's. If you need help, well, our neighbors would come over and help us to weed, to plow, to water, and that has sort of gone away. I've noticed. But with our project, with our farm, I'm starting to see that come back. You'll have one farmer that used to be over here all by himself trying to, take care of his plot. But he's coming around now. He's helping out, and we're helping him out. So farming in Navajo has always been, something that you respected. I remember Grandma used to always put on her jewelries and, her necklaces and dressed up really nice just to go to the cornfield. And that's how beautiful it is. And I think that's about enough about me and my project. Thank you.
Well, I think it's, as you can tell, these gentlemen are doing what they're doing from the heart. And they're doing it from the soul. And they want to do it for the good of their communities. And you can feel it, as they're telling their own personal stories. They're sharing with you a bit of themselves. And I think it takes a lot to come up here and do that. And I want to commend these gentlemen for doing that. But one of the questions that I have for you is, what impact are you seeing now? You've both talked about how long you've been doing the farming, why you've been doing the farming. Reiterate again what you're doing and why, and the impact, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Go ahead.
Hello. Christine. No, actually, I think what really motivated me, and I just talked about it a few minutes ago,
Can you
is
guys hear?
is just that, we're trying to bring health and accessibility to food back to our community. Maybe I should come up there.
She's gonna turn it up. She's gonna turn it up.
But definitely, I am seeing impact, for the good in our community.
Can you hear him?
Oh, you can. Okay. Some of the impacts that I've seen since I've been there, again, is the interrelationship among the members, as well as all the other species. In Navajo, we have a philosophy of being balanced and living in a good way, a harmonic existence, and I'm starting to see that people are being more positive about being out at the farm, being more positive about their health, and being more positive about their children growing up. And that's the impact I see. And also the access to food. I remember when I was growing up, the only place you go to was the trading post, and they didn't have all that food, the good stuff, the fruits and the vegetables. All they had was soda pops and canned foods, processed food. And today in our community, you still see that with the convenience stores, the inconvenience stores, and we're trying to change that around. We're trying to make it to where people can actually know where their food is coming from, and know that their food is fresh, and know who the farmer is. And so that's what the impact I've seen. People actually being happy, enthusiastic about going out to the field, being able to dress up again and going back out there and sort of bringing back that tradition, that culture. And that's the impact I've seen the 13 years I've been there.
Okay, let's see if I can my brain suddenly went dead.
Let's be the food.
But no, I'm trying to think of how to describe what I'm wanting to say. There has been some changes, improvements, put it that way. As I told you earlier, after we started our program, getting young kids involved, and this was in 1998, 99, and here it's been already pretty much, almost 20 years. So those kids that were involved are now basically almost adults, or some are adults, and they're already starting to grow their own gardens. And they're teaching their offsprings or their younger brothers, sisters, how to do all that. So similarly, the schools within our community have also started their own gardens. They start serving items from the garden in their daily school meals, and also teaching the kids about basic plant life, basic farming, and those type of things. So it's picking up, and I really it really does me good to see that happening, as well as seeing the farmland that has been vacant for maybe 20 years is now coming back to life. And we need to encourage all our tribal members to do more, because as you might know, New Mexico is in a semi-desert. I've heard it described different ways. Climate is very dry. This time of the year, this year, for example, we're going through a major drought, and we just learned that our water is depleting, and we may not have enough to finish our season this year. By mid-August, we're going to be wishing that those canals were filled again, but as it goes, you know, nature is not cooperating with us too well at this point. It's raining all over the place, but except in the area where I'm at. Last week we had what they call a monsoon. It's monsoon time, they say, but it rained everywhere except where my little farm is. And there was even floods, but I don't know why Isleta is not getting any water, but I'm hoping that since it's raining here, maybe I'll soak myself up and they can squeeze me when I get home and I'll get some of that moisture planted some way or other. But seriously, I'm glad to see things are improving. They are. And it's just a matter of working with the system, understanding what's going on in order to enjoy some useful venture with growing, even though they tell us we have a drought. So with that, that's my thinking at this point.
You know, you both had talked about the variety of what you are growing, but never really got into specifics. I know we have, for those who may have just joined us or those who are listening up above, and what we're talking about, you know, it's blue corn, chilies, and Anasazi beans. However, there are other products that you guys are also now introducing or offering. If you want to share what you have with this audience, that would be great. I think, you know, it'd be very informative because I know that there is some variety that you guys are working with. Go ahead. And
Yes, great question. In the beginning, we used to mainly concentrate on traditional crops, and those are mainly field crops like corn, squash, varieties of melons and watermelons. And once we constructed our Quonset, I call it, it's actually a hoop house, and it allowed us to grow some other varieties of produce, such as garlic, my favorite. And I plant those in the fall, and then by May or June, it's ready to be harvested. And the children have never really experienced garlic, and they wonder, what is garlic? And then I tell them, well, did you have spaghetti tonight? And well, you got garlic in that spaghetti. And most of everything you eat, you know, it has garlic in it. So that is one of the very special products that and of course, all the chefs love it. And I think they go for like $12 a pound. So if you can grow a ton of garlic, you can make some, you know, turn a profit. And then
oh, I'm sorry.
we get our water from the alluvial of the sea aquifer, and it's right on the banks of the Little Colorado River. So we draw our irrigation water from the ground, and we go down about 100 feet, approximately 100 feet. And then we draw the water with a solar-powered irrigation, pumping. And so in the old days, we used to have a big old generator that, you know, it was real loud, and I didn't really like it. And it was very expensive as well. But now, there is traces of uranium in the water. There's traces of other, you know, minerals and iron in the water that's not good for the body or for the plants. And yeah, that's a good question. But what we're doing is we're trying to fix that. We bring in filtration systems for potable water. We sort of, you know, not over irrigate our fields because a lot of our plants are drought tolerant, and so that allows us to do that. And some of the produce that we grow, you won't find in supermarkets. One time I went out to Flagstaff and I took all my squash, and folks are like, "What is that?" And here it's our traditional squash. You guys they've never seen something like that. And so in the beginning, that's what we used to grow. And now we grow tomatoes. I mean, I grow tomatoes growing everywhere, different varieties of tomatoes. I have one growing out of my ears. But as well as fruits, we have apple trees, but that's slowly coming into production. We also do a lot of greens, a lot of lettuce, spinach, carrots for the children. I remember somebody had mentioned, the kids, you see the looks on their faces when they pull a carrot out of the ground. It's like, I didn't know that's how you grew carrots, and it's such a wonderful feeling to see that. And some of the other products that we grow is value-added stuff. Like we'll grow our blue corn, and then we'll make it into blue corn meal, like my friend does here. And then from there, blue corn is held sacred in Navajo. Our wedding, our puberty ceremonies are consistent of corn, brown corn, and as well as the pollen that comes off the corn. It's we say prayers with that, and it's very special. And so we've come a long ways, and I plan to introduce more foods in our area, and we don't know what that is. One time I grew a bunch of collard greens, and nobody knew how to prepare that, except for one friend. He's from North Carolina, Lumbee Nation. He knew what to do with it. And so we got to be careful sort of look at the needs of the community and see what foods that is needed.
Thanks, Stacey. And Joseph, I know that you have a lot of value-added product. If you want to explain to them, not only what you have, but where is your product going? Where can they get your product if they are out of New Mexico?
Okay. Let me give you a little background of why I have the products that I have. Blue corn, I chose blue corn as my specialty product, mainly because of the nutritional value and because it's a sacred corn, and also to educate everyone about its qualities as far as good health. So, and then the other part is, since my business is a private business, I have to think about what's the best way to promote it, what's the best way to deal with everything that you have to when you get into a business situation with food. So I purposely chose dried foods, raw foods, to package, because with FDA regulations, I don't need no special license, because I'm not changing the food item. If you're going to cook it, you're going to change it, then you have to have a classification of some sort. And so because of that, that's the reason why I'm doing it the dried food method, and let the buyer use it the way they want to use it. So that's one reason why I'm staying with dried foods. So with dried foods, I have the blue corn, I have the products, the Anasazi beans, the red chili powder. And another reason why I have those items together is because they complement each other. You can make a whole dinner using each item if you wish to use it all at once or one at a time or such. So that's how I ended up with these products. But as far as the blue corn meal can be used in a raw state for bacon. All you have to do is add the proper ingredients so that you can use it to make either bread, tortillas, chips, or whatever it is that you want to produce from it. So I'm not a chef, so I can't tell you what you need to add. I think you can find that somewhere else. But and then I decided to do a value-added item. That's where I came up with the pancake mix and the cornbread muffin mix. And those are already pre-mixed with the necessary ingredients. All you have to do is just add a couple items, or maybe three, a couple eggs, milk, and a little bit of vegetable oil. Make a batter, and you got pancakes. The same way with the cornbread. So there you have your instant breakfast or meal or snack. And then the other item out of blue corn I make is also what we call parched corn. What that is you're roasting the corn, parching it, and then you're mixing it with sea salt for flavor. And that has always been within our traditional type of food for snacks. It used to be used for in the winter time when the families all staying inside, staying warm, sitting by the fire. They would roast the corn and eat it as a snack. And so that's where that comes from, the thought of that. And there's two ways you can do it. Some tribes will use the old method of mixing it with sand, roasting it over the fire, or you can use the modern method of using a coffee roaster. Does real good for roasting the corn. So that's how we do it, is using a modern day coffee roaster. So that's the other item that we have for snacking. So I have all these available at the table. And then I can't forget the red chili. The red chili I also promote as an item from New Mexico. Of course, New Mexico is famous for its red chili now, both red and green. If you ever go into New Mexico, the state question now is, they'll ask you, is red or green? So if anybody asks you, they're talking about chili. So do you like green or you want red, when you go into a restaurant? So I have only the red because it's much easier to package, because all you do is just mill it down to a powder, package it, and that's it. But before you do that, you do have to roast it slightly so you can kill off the bacteria and any other hazards that might be part of it. And that way it gives you even better flavor, a roasting type flavor. You'll notice that immediately when you start tasting it. So those are the items that I have. And any questions on those? I wish I could prepare them for you, but
he says he's not a chef, and he already named a bunch of things he's already done. So I actually think you're kind of a chef. Yes. And one thing that I wanted to ask before we go through everybody else asking questions, because I'm sure you got a ton of questions, is my thing is, these are family-owned businesses, right? These are family passing it down. Sustainability, a lot of times you look at sustainability as how much money you're going to make. But I think in sustainability for a traditional native-owned family farm is it passed down? Do you guys have a plan for the next generation to take over your traditional methods of processing? And we'll go ahead and Stacey, if you want to answer that question first, and then.
Sure. That sustainability, when somebody says sustainability, it's a broad term, if you ask me. But at the farm, the way we define that is, you have something right now that you can use, but save some for the folks, that are coming after you. And that's what, sustainability means to us. And it's also a relationship that you develop, not only with the people and your surroundings and the other species. And that is something that will, come back around. It comes in a circle. And I think that's what sustainability is, and that's what we try to to improve on, to work on, is to teach our youngsters that I know, because I'm not going to be around forever. I'd like to someday just step back and just shut up and let the kids take over, and that's the day I'm looking forward to. That's sustainability to me.
Joseph.
The farm you have is your farm. Is it part of a larger tribal organization so that the kids that are coming up and learning how to do the farming will actually own the farm like 30 years from now, and they'll be teaching their children who will then come up, and it will be this outpouring into the whole community? Is that the plan of it?
The farm is a nonprofit organization, and it's community owned, community operated. I'm just the manager there, and so yes, the children will come back and they'll own that farm. It's not mine. Yes.
Joseph, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the sustainability question for your family-owned farm?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I need to give you a little background so you can understand my situation. Since I own the business, it's not a tribal enterprise, although I do work with community best way we can. My father was a farmer, and he ended up acquiring a total of 55 acres right side by side, adding on as time went on. And he passed away in 2004, and I was very much close to my father. He taught me a lot about farming, and I promised him that I would continue the farm. He didn't want it developed. He wanted to stay as a farm in order for the community to flourish or gain from it. Anyway, we could create it. So I told him that, no problem, Dad. I will carry it on. So up to today, since 2004, I've been able to do that. Even though I come from a big family, luckily my other siblings are not into farming, so they're not worried about what, they're not interfering with my plan, or whatever it might be called. They're allowing me to go through with it. They understand. I told them that what I wanted to do. So with that in mind, that's another reason why I push myself to do what I'm doing, because I make that commitment. And secondly, as life brings you whatever it is that brings, however it happens, I did have my own family. I was married. We have one daughter. We had one daughter. I'm saying had because my wife passed away in 1999, and then my daughter passed away in 2004. No, take it back. 2014. Yeah, am I in the right year? Yeah, I get confused. But anyway, so there goes who am I going to leave it to? My daughter did have 2 kids, my grandkids, a daughter and a son. The daughter now is 11 years old, the boy is 6. So they are the ones that are going to take over my business if they so choose. And they are excited. They're with me every day out in the garden. They want to do everything. And of course, you have to make sure they don't get into something they shouldn't, but that's where it's going to go. And of course, they're part of the community. They have their friends. They all come over. I gave them their own little plot about the size of where you're sitting. So they take care of that. and they're doing very well.
Nice.
Any questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. One of the things that I'm going to put my tourism hat on. Agritourism is really a big thing now. People want to come visit native-owned farms. They want to see how things were traditionally done. Do you two offer that opportunity to visitors to come visit your farms?
We have quite a flow of people coming out to the farm, and in my previous business, I used to operate a tour guide company, Resit, and we would show all the professional photographers that are interested in Navajo land, all the natural wonders of Navajo land. We'd visit, the petroglyphs. We'd visit different settlements. So we'd go all through the little Colorado River corridor. And one of the things that never really occurred to me is farming, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I've met some folks that are interested in partnering with North Leupp Farm and getting a ag tourism route through there again. And yes, I look forward to that, to when we can implement that. And it's going to, not only will it, sort of, introduce the farm to other folks, but it will also, allow us to bring in some revenues. Somebody might stop it and say, hey, here's $1 million.
Donations.
Yes, we would love to invite anyone to come over and show off our farm by appointment, of course, mainly because we're so busy. I want to show it off because in my area, what we do is we flood irrigate all our fields. And in order to flood irrigate, you need, for conservation purposes, we level our fields with special equipment. It's just as flat as can be, like the floor there, with a slight slope towards the end of the field so the water can gradually move down. And also we don't have dirt canals anymore. We've cement lined all our canals, and with proper gates, check gates, and openings to where the water needs to go. So it was done so well that a person don't even need a shovel to irrigate. You just go, open a gate, close one, open another one until you're done. So I like to show that off because it's, it's such an easy thing that you guys could do it. One little instruction and you'll be out there flipping gates back and forth. Good exercise too, to walk back and forth, because you'll be easily walking about 5 miles by the end of the day. So, and that part I'd like to show off because it is something unique to people that are not familiar with flood irrigating, and also the small little plots of fields that we develop. And we're seasonal. We don't have any greenhouse type approach. Everything is done out in the open field, so it's seasonal. For New Mexico, our season begins in March and ends in October. After that, everything's dormant.
This is really fascinating, and you got to keep in mind, I'm here learning myself. I'm from Alaska. I'm from a rainforest where we have an abundance of rain, and the only thing that we grow everything is wild. To be able to listen to these gentlemen talk about what they're doing, not only to help feed their community, to help fight diabetes, to eat naturally, but to also share water conservation in a time that we really, really need to. These are the experts in the field of doing that. They do welcome you to come visit them, and I encourage you, if you're in New Mexico, definitely look these gentlemen up. And also, the products that they have to offer can be used in anything. And somebody asked me, I've been in New Mexico now for 6 years, from Alaska, what does an Alaska chef do with New Mexico chili? Well, we make halibut enchiladas. So anything can be adapted, and I'm going to tell you that the chili that he has, I actually use myself. It is excellent, and the food that is grown in New Mexico is superb, and it's also very healthy for you. Now, what I'd like to do, if you have any questions, this is an opportunity. I'd love for you to ask them, because these are the experts in growing in a place that is probably what you would think most difficult, but yet yields the most healthiest foods that there are. So if you have a question, please let me know, and I will bring the mic to you, so you don't even need to get up if you don't want to. Any questions?
I have a very simple question, but why is cornmeal considered to be sacred?
What was the question? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
You had mentioned that you felt that blue cornmeal is sacred. Why is that?
Why is blue corn sacred? To you?
To me?
To your tribe?
Oh, okay. I got your message. Why is it sacred? It's used in the ceremonies, and different color corn have different meaning. The blue signifies west. The white corn is east, and white corn is north, and the I believe it's yellow corn is south. So, and then we have a clan called the Black Eye clan that uses the blue corn for their ceremonies, for all the sacred things that they perform or do, and that's why it's considered sacred. For special ceremonies, special dances, blue corn is used as a item of offering. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
What's the difference in spice level between like Mexican chilies and American Indian chili? Is it the same?
Let's see if I heard your question right. What's the difference between Mexican chili and what I'm growing? Oh, okay. The Scoville ratings, I think it's called, it ranges from 0 to, I think, 15 or 1800. The chili in New Mexico that's grown can come in 3 different levels. You'll either have 750, which is mild, 1200 is a hot, anything more than that, like up to 1800, is extra hot. Now, how that happens, I really don't know. Different people will tell you different things. I've even asked analysts at New Mexico State University, but they can't tell me either. It's just a matter of the chili itself, I guess, how it matures, and it's just a matter of just by tasting it is the only way you'll find out if you have hot chili.
So I'm curious about the Anasazi. I apologize first of all for missing the earlier parts of your presentation. So you may have already talked about the Anasazi tribes or the Anasazi nation, and my understanding from when I studied Las Vegas, how it was settled ages ago, were that the Anasazi Indians were living in that area then, and so did they migrate up from New Mexico, or did they migrate down from that area to New Mexico? From there to down, and then just if you could tell us a little bit about their culture and these Anasazi beans in particular.
Yes, Anasazi Beans is something that's unique, and I'm so happy to be able to promote it, to work with it, and so forth, because as the story goes, and I'd like to refer to my notes here to talk about this, the Anasazi were Indians who lived in the Four Corners area of Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. That's what they refer to as Four Corners, dating back to 130 AD. They were best identified by substantial architectural achievements known today as cliff dwellings. Most of you might have heard of Mesa Verde National Park, or may have already been there, but if you haven't, that's a place to visit to learn more about this culture. During the late 1900s or early 1900s, there were geologists that were looking for whatever they could find that they could work with to determine a lot more about this life that people led back in those days. So while they were digging, they found a clay pot, and when they opened it up, it had beans in it. And it turned out to be what we call Anasazi beans today. And of course they dated it, and turned out to be that they were over 1,000 years old. And also they tested to see if it would germinate, and it germinated. So that's where the beans come from now. So today, around the Four Corners area is where you'll find many farmers that are still growing that bean today. And they've already trademarked it as Anasazi beans, which the word comes from a Navajo word known as Ancient Ones. I believe that's right. Since he's a Navajo, I'll ask him.
Anasazi, that translates to the Ancient Ones.
Yeah. And since it was trademarked already, and you know how the world is with people, you know, if you try to steal a trademark from somebody, they'll hang you or such. But anyway, I talked to the people from Anasazi business, and I told them who I was. I told them I'm a descendant of these ancient ones, because modern day Pueblos supposedly are descendants of this civilization. There's no recorded history on that, so, but we know that we are just from the sayings that they have. The elders talk about where we came from. It's not written, but you can hear it in the prayers, and that's the only place that we can connect, that we know that we may have come from. So since I wanted to promote these beans, that's why on my label you'll see another word besides Anasazi, and that's Jupian. Jupian is an current Isleta word, means the same thing as ancient, Jupian.
I'm wondering if you've seen any disruption to the traditional planting schedule with changes in the climate in the region.
Do you see disruptions in the planting techniques because of the climate change?
Somewhat, not too strong yet, but I can sense that it's changing. The growing season, for example, earlier I mentioned our growing season begins in March, ends in October. But the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen the growing season going into November. There's people still baling hay in November in my area when it should be snowing, but here we are still baling hay. And then in the spring, March, now somehow the weather gets warm, like it's ready for spring, but don't let that fool you, because there's a cold spell going to come in about mid-April. That's going to kill everything because there's going to be a frost. And that's happening more frequently. So there are changes coming. But it's slowly happening. You have to be on top of it. So it is happening. And then even the weather conditions, the rains aren't coming the same times that we're used to. It's changed. They don't come the dates that we were used to seeing them come. Yes.
I know when I was growing up, our family would move around. My uncle would go and scout different areas where there's runoffs, where the rain, it rained somewhere and then the water came down and it brought with it minerals and stuff. So each season we would always have a different location to plant. And I don't see that anymore because of the severe drought situation. A lot of our springs, a lot of the runoffs have disappeared. And so that's the difference I've seen due to climate change. And all, I think people has just, gotten too busy as well because they, so that's, one of the difference I've seen, as well as some of the species. We used to grow, varieties of different corn, but a lot of those corns are, we're having a tough time cultivating. And that's due to the soil, being depleted. It's just because, there's a drought right now, and that's some of the things I've seen.
That was going to be my question, where do you feel that your access to water with drought, but also just irrigation overall, has depleted with climate change on the rise? Do you feel you have to supplement more than what you would have to do in the past, where you could worry about just when the rains were coming, as opposed to now you have to use more irrigation methods and force rain to come where it normally doesn't anymore?
It's gotten our people to be dependent on irrigation water rather than, trying to, grow crops in a traditional way. I believe it has. We're forced to supplement a lot of our irrigation water with groundwater just because it hasn't rained in 200 days. Even if it does rain, it's only, a few inches. And those few inches of water, it runs right off because a lot of the vegetation is missing. It's either because it's overgrazed or they've done dried out. So the water just runs off into the river and we don't see that water again.
Are there any more questions? Well, I actually would like to say thank you very much for sharing your story, sharing your knowledge, and thank all of you for sitting here and listening. These are important subjects. This is not just for today, it's also for tomorrow. And I want to thank the gentlemen for thinking forward, thinking about tomorrow. So with that, I'd like to say in my language, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. And again, let's give these guys a round of applause.
I will.